In progress.
I don't know. I brought the zip drive with the slides for the talk, so.
Yes.
Progress.
All the things. Things that are first.
I'd like to invite Sue Luber up to provide a reflection. It's a really cool story. At our committee meeting 2 weeks ago, she said, I tried creating a reflection and asked AI how to do it, to give it a try. I said, oh yes, 2 weeks from now, you're on.
Good afternoon. That's true. I generated this reflection with the AI app or website ChatGPT. You've probably heard about it in the news a lot lately. And I only put in the request to write a short reflection on Rotary's impact throughout World War II, since we're hearing about Monument Men and the time frame of World War II today. This is what ChatGPT gave me. A beautiful, in under 5 seconds, and put 6 beautiful paragraphs, only from 3 I'll read to you because I don't want to go too long. Rotary's impact throughout World War II was significant and far-reaching, as the organization's commitment to service, fellowship, and humanitarian efforts shone brightly during this tumultuous period in history. Despite the challenges posed by the war, Rotary members worked tirelessly to make a difference in their communities and support those affected by the conflict. Rotary provided relief efforts to assist displaced persons, refugees, and those affected by bombings and destruction. Through the distribution of food, clothing, and medical supplies, Rotary helped alleviate suffering and provided essential aid to those in need. Moreover, Rotary's commitment to maintaining connections and promoting peace helped members from different nations maintain communication and collaboration, fostering understanding between people of warring nations. Looking back on Rotary's impact throughout World War II serves as a reminder of the organization's enduring values. Rotary's values continue to inspire and guide its work today, ensuring the lessons learned from history are carried forward to create a better, more compassionate world. Thank you, ChatGPT. And I hope you're able to use the technology and embrace it sometime soon in the future and enjoy it. Thank you.
It's a new tomorrow, isn't it? Jennifer Teske, back from 3 weeks of knee surgery, a miracle, I think. She'll introduce our visitors and guests.
Yep, you'll have to bear with me while I get around here. So first, we have a visiting Rotarian, Kirsten Stromset, Grand Force past president, Downtown Club.
Yes, hi, I'm happy to be here.
Great, great, and here with Jen. Sorry. And then we have, where's Tom? Tom up here is Tom Utzer, and from the Roseville chapter, district philanthropy. Any words you want to say? Hello?
You're good here, Robbie.
Oh, great, great. I have retired Barry and Maureen right over here from the Henderson Club.
From Prairie Lake.
Oh, and Henderson. Okay, sounds great. And then we have, of course, Be Good with Allie. Yes.
I'm back into the question.
And then we have Marcia Douglas. Oh, I should have done that when I was over here. From Home Federal. Marcia, what is your position at Federal?
I'm in executive banking here with Frank.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Thank you to our guests and visiting Rotarians.
Is there anyone else we missed?
Oh, Elaine, I just think of you as a Rotarian in general, and it's like you're. Oh, there you go.
That's about cleaning up. Huh? Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome to our visitors and guests. I didn't know if you knew that the two people with Carol Weigel are living in the same the waters on Mayowood. And I love the idea that you're bringing new people here, and particularly people who have like 50 years experience in Rotary. So anyway, yes. And I'm glad that Jeff is bringing his the Forum Communications, which owns the Post Bulletin. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
This is my boss.
Yeah. Okay. And she's a past president of her Grand Forks downtown club. So, and then started another club too.
That's when we started.
Okay. So you were in two clubs.
I ran 3 clubs.
3 clubs.
I was in Fargo for a while.
Well, we have 3 clubs here too. Audrey, did you want to make a comment, or do you want me to do it from here?
I can come out nice.
Okay.
Great. Well, that will not be that.
We had another request from the district down in Mexico to host another research intern. So this is the same program that Edgar and Mariana have been part of, and we're seeking hosts. It's a male, Dr. Jamie Flores Guayanet. I'm sure I'm massacring the last name. He's coming in August. We do have one host family already lined up. We are looking for 1 or 2 more. So Mayo does not, it helps. We don't have, the person will not be driving. So it does help if you're anywhere near a bus line, it helps. I looked at, I made phone calls to Mayo, and there's no bus in Stewartville. So I'd host, but I don't have any transportation. But we are looking for another host. Basically, it's pretty much, this is similar to hosting youth, but there's a lot more flexibility because they're adults. So they don't have to worry about having somebody stay with them when you're out of town. But if anybody is interested in hosting, basically you provide a bedroom and a bathroom. And Elaine, Bill, do you want to say anything about your hosting? Because you did it.
No, it was very, very convenient and enjoyable. It really was. No impact, actually.
Yeah. So if anybody is interested, please contact me and we will get a schedule together. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Audrey. There's a correction in the moccasin flower, in case you haven't found it. It took me about a microsecond to have wonderful responses that says, do you know that it's not June 30th when the district is having their awards? So it is held today on June 8th at 4 p.m., not June 30th, and I apologize for the area. You can register on the district site for the Zoom link, or I did put a copy of the article, the moccasin flower, in the center of your table, and there's a Zoom link on that. Could be you have to register in order to get the Zoom link, but I don't think it's proprietary. You know, sometimes they say, don't share this, it's yours. And I don't think the district works from that standpoint. I'd like to remind you, Wednesday, June 21st, to sign up for the district governor installation of Patricia McLeese in the Floral Hall at Graham Park. The event is 5:30 to 8 that night, and the sign-up deadline is June 15th. So if you're planning to go, and I hope we'll have a good turnout from the Rotary Club of Rochester, please make that signature registration. On the 22nd, the next day, Ashok Patel will be installed as president of the Rotary Club of Rochester. He will be the 99th president of this club. Yeah, yeah. So in accordance with our bylaws, I'd like to announce the intended membership of Catherine Zavaleta, proposed by Ashok Patel. Kathy has recently retired from Mayo as a principal management consultant in the strategy department. We learned her grandfather was Rotarian. If you have any objections, please contact me within 7 days. And fellow Rotarians, it's my privilege to welcome a new member into our club, Ellen Hayden. Please come forward, Ellen, with your sponsor, Vicki Allen, so that we may formally recognize you as a Rotarian. Vicki, please introduce our new member.
I'm excited to introduce Ellen Hayden. She is the new development director with Two Rivers Habitat for Humanity. She's returning to an organization that developed her passion for nonprofit and fundraising. Ellen began her career with Habitat for Humanity of Steel, Waseca area, discovering quickly that her talent for engaging community members in conversation about the benefits of homeownership. This resulted in new partnerships and fundraising to help the Habitat mission of a world where everyone has a decent place to live. Ellen worked with this affiliate through the merger with the Rochester area Habitat for Humanity to become one affiliate, now known as Two Rivers Habitat for Humanity, and that happened in 2018. Ellen has worked in development roles with two other nonprofits, Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center and St. Mary's University, before returning to what she describes as her nonprofit passion, impacting safe and affordable housing. Looking ahead to her future goals, Ellen will begin her journey to her master's in philanthropy and development this summer through St. Mary's University. A lot of work. Although she isn't busy enough, Ellen stays active with her pup Junie, working on house projects and crafting with friends. She especially enjoys spending long weekends together with her friends and family working on quilting projects. Excited to welcome Ellen into our club.
Ellen, let's get Ellen on this side. Ellen, you have been invited into Rotary because you are an outstanding person in the community and in your chosen walk of life. Thus, we welcome you into membership of the Rotary Club of Rochester and in the Fellowship of Rotary International throughout the world. The responsibilities of membership have been explained to you, and your fellow Rotarians expect you to honor the principles for which Rotary stands. The motto of Rotary is service above self, and we commit it to the personal care of each Rotarian so that it may be respected and allowed to grow among those with whom we come into contact. As a token of your commitment to this ideal, we present you with a lapel pin. A certificate of membership, and a code of ethics, and a new member folder. Congratulations and welcome. Extend a warm welcome and with it the friendship of us all. I have to say, when I saw her membership application, and at the end it says, you know, what are your interests in helping the club? And this was a dream application. Greeter programs, visitors desk, social events, ethics program, rotation days, scribe, vocational talk, Quarryville Fall Festival. And I'm going, yes. But she also said, you know, plug me in where you're needed, and we're excited. I know we had a wonderful program that your mother gave. She's the executive director. And I think understood kind of where your organization is now and the wonderful work it's doing. So Vicki, I ask you to please accompany Ellen to the visitors desk at the end of this meeting so that each of us may welcome and meet her personally. I'm pleased to welcome to the podium Tom User, past district governor and District 5960 major gift advisor, and a member of the Roseville Rotary Club. Tom?
Thank you. Good to be here. Ellen, I was going to ask you when they did the orientation, if they told you that the only time you get to say no is when we ask you to join.
Not versed in that, so.
It sounded like it, so I didn't think it'd be really a problem. Well, as Ally said, I was district governor. There probably are half a dozen folks in the room who were members of the club when I was governor, because that's such a long time ago, 1996, 97. But I've been hanging in there for a long time. I skipped the country, not literally. I headed off to California for a number of years shortly after I was governor, but stayed involved in Rotary, and it's partly why I was in California that I'm here today, because I became acquainted with a Rotary Foundation donor recognition program that one of the districts in California started, and it's called the Triple Crown Donor. And so we have 4 members of your club today that I want to acknowledge as Triple Crown donors. A Triple Crown donor is someone who has been making those regular gifts to the Rotary Foundation and has now achieved major donor status, at least major donor 1 or above. A second component is that they are a member of the Bequest Society, which means that in their estate plan, they have made a commitment to the Rotary Foundation of more than $10,000. And the third piece is another example of that ongoing commitment to the Rotary Foundation by making a gift at the Paul Harris Society for $1,000 each year. And so I know we still got 3 weeks left in the year, or maybe another name or two will pop up. But if Lee Johnson would come up, if he's here, and Phil Parcell. Prospects for Governor Carol Wyland. And since Bill's here, Elaine came along, because Elaine has also earned this over in her Rochester Rising class.
Linda.
Thank you. Bill. Thank you. And Lee. How are you? Good to see you again.
Thank you.
As I said, these folks have earned that this year. This is the first year we've done it in the district. When I introduced it to the district I was part of in California, the first year we had 27 or 28. We're at 38 right now, still 3 weeks to go. I suspect it's going to climb a little bit. One of the areas that we find in Rotary, as we acknowledge those of you who are making ongoing contributions, is that you also have put the Rotary Foundation in your estate plan, but you didn't tell Rotary about that. And so if we don't know that, then you don't come up on the rosters and so on. So I've got a letter going out to about 38 Rotarians across the district who are Paul Harris Society level donors and major donors, and asking if maybe they've got Rotary in their estate plans. But it's just another way to say thank you for the ongoing support that these folks and all of you, this club's had a long history of great support of the Rotary Foundation. And so we just want to say thank you for all of that. Thanks again. There's late, I'm sorry.
Higher for we pay a lot of money to this guy. You get the meat right there next.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. So at this time, are there any other announcements before we call our speaker, Frank Allen, up? And I'll get this back.
And we just have a quick
Yes.
surprise.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to surprise Frank Allen, our speaker today, with a genuine certificate of recognition from the combination of the International Rotary Society and the International Scouting Agency. The award is called the Dr. Cliff Doctorman Award. And he's getting this, Frank's getting this recognition as a successful nomination by Dave Mortel, the Scouting Game Haven Council, and myself. So on behalf of Rotary International and the Scouting Rotarians, Frank, it's my honor to present you with the Cliff Doctorman Award. And for the audience, I'll tell them a little bit about Dr. Doctorman. So Cliff Doctorman was president of Rotary International 1992 to 93. His professional career was at higher education administration in University of California and University of the Pacific for a total of 40 years. In Rotary International, he was a leader for 45 years, serving on almost all the committees and including the chairman of the Rotary's Centennial Operations Committee. So when RI celebrated its 100th year in 2005. As the world president of Rotary International and all what we heard today from ChatGPT-4 and our humanitarian efforts, Dr. Doctorman reflected personal contributions to goodwill and understanding in the world. He was really tireless with the distinguished service on Polio Plus and for humanitarian work, and he authored the booklet ABCs of Rotary. So it's with great pride and appreciation that the International Federation of Scouting Rotarians offers you this recognition, Frank, and in honor of Dr. Doctor. Not over. You can wear this during your presentation. If it's it's for Eagle Scout.
Hey, thank you. All scouts understand that. Another patch in my uniform, right? Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashik and Dave. What an honor.
They probably don't even need to read this because he's so awesome that you guys know everything you need to know about Frank. But I joke that this is my long lost brother and it's my dad there, George. Not really, but I'd like to claim any Alan we can find. So it's good. Frank is the staff financial planner at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. He joined Mayo in 1996, having spent much of his time on the Mayo Clinic Jacksonville, Florida campus. Frank's proudest moment of his career was receiving the Distinguished Mayo Administrator Award from the Florida medical staff in 2012. Up until this award, he is the greatest. Frank completed his Certified Financial Planner CFP designation in 1990 while working in St. Louis, Missouri. His over 35 years experience at the CFP has taught him the importance of a good financial plan. Frank has been married to his wife Kim for 37 years and has 2 married sons and 1 granddaughter. In his spare time, I do right?
1 granddaughter.
1 granddaughter, yep.
Soon to be 2.
In his spare time, he enjoys bowling and golf. We're very excited for this program and thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you. Wow, what a start. I appreciate that. We're going to jump over because I've got to do some slides and of course, what an honor, not just with the award, but having my father here today, who is, and we're talking a little bit about his father-in-law, but I'll mention that throughout our talk today. So want to get our slides up here. How are we doing, Bill? Here we go. And so just to give you a little history, it's more about family history because in 2009, for Christmas, there was this gift underneath my Christmas tree. And I opened it up and it was this book from my parents, George and Dorothy Allen, saying, you need to read this book. It's got a little bit of family history in it. And I thought, what? Because several years before I received a book from my grandfather. And he signed it and it's called Architecture in the United States. And there's a little addendum in that book saying, I did this little project during World War II called Monuments Men. And I kind of, as a teenager years ago, brushed that off and really didn't take anything seriously. But then when this book arrived, I thought, there's something pretty neat here, pretty special. And so it's been neat to now read the book, but two, a movie was made about it. And three, Vicki and others saying, hey, would you mind sharing this story with the Rotary Club? And so today, I've got a few slides. When I say a few, we're going to jump through a lot of them pretty quick. But more importantly, I also want to thank my sister Ruth for putting most of these slides together. And then, of course, today I'm dedicating today's talk to my brother Ralph, who passed away 7 years ago this week. And he was actually the one with my sister who went to Washington, D.C. and watched the medal given to the Monuments Men when they were recognized back in 2015, November. And so this is really special for me today to present this to you all. All right, Bill, let's jump through here. So a couple things you need to understand, and I understand the slides are going to be a little off, and I apologize. It's just understanding that what created the Monuments Men. I don't want to quote the movie at all. We'll touch on the movie later, but the most important thing is understanding that the Roberts Commission was created, and Roosevelt in 1943 was getting a lot of feedback from George Stout and a number of these art curators and architects and people from all over the United States saying, what are we doing to protect the buildings, the artwork? We're hearing about all these things that have been going on around Europe. And so thanks to President Roosevelt in 1943, he put together a commission. But the most important thing is that white box at the bottom, talking about these monuments are not merely pretty things. They're valued signs of man's creative power. Of course, man struggled to relate to himself, to his past, and to his God. I was really talking about this artwork because I know many of you already knew this through history, but realizing that Hitler was sweeping across Europe and stealing the art, particularly destroying art from the Jews, but yet also stealing a lot of art and now hoarding it. And of course, that's the basis of how Monuments Men became famous. Next slide. So the MFAA, which all MFAA stands for, is the idea that it's masterpieces, fine arts, and archives. So they had to give it a name, and it was listed under the G5 of the civil service, which assisted our military. So it wasn't just the Army, it was also all the services. And so the MFAA was created, composed of all volunteers at the time, of course, British and American, and centered around experts who are mostly connected with Harvard University. There's a key there. I'll touch on that a little later. Artists, sculptors, architects, archivists, and then of course, all officers with very little support. And what I think is fascinating is if you did see the movie, there was the part where they said, we're trying to protect this church from getting bombed. And the commanding officer said, we don't care about churches, we care about lives. But I think it was an important part that it started, we realized even with World War II, that with any kind of war, we need to protect the art. We need to protect the culture of that community, no matter what happens. So here are some of the members originally from the first Monuments Men. Keep going here. So we had Dr. Taylor, the director of the Met in New York City, was an advisor. Dr. Sachs, George Stout, key player here, because in the movie, that's George Clooney, my wife's favorite. Prospective persons who were contacted attending meetings. A lot of things were all volunteer up till that point. Think about it. 1939, you had the invasion of Poland. You had all these other sequential events, but yet things were getting stolen and now they're being hidden. And these folks were volunteering to help out. Next slide. Okay, Jeffrey Webb, Ron Balfour, important because he's the one in the movie with the Canadian Army. Of course, Stout, Lafarge, Ralph Hammond, key word here, I'll mention here shortly, and then Walter Hutchinson, who was also an architect. And you can see where the locations that they were focusing on once they were able to land, which was, think about our Allied forces came 79 years ago this week, were able to push into France And these guys started arriving by late August. And so they had a very short window to be able to start to do their work. Other members include James Waterman. So if you saw the movie, this is Matt Damon, another of my wife's favorites. But it's just important to understand these were key players who, of course, were focused on, I'm going to protect buildings, I'm going to get the word out. We've got to do what's necessary to get things back. Of course, Dixon Spain, but Leslie, and I'm going through this fairly fast, but I think the most important thing I want to get to some of the things that I thought were pretty exciting in what they did and what they were for. My thanks to my sister. This was actually a picture of James Rorimer in the lower left, and I tried to include pictures that we've recovered, that we've received. Just a quick funny story after the book came out, and then of course the movie came out in 2015. My brother Richard, who Dave Mortel is very close to, he's like, I found this box in my basement. And I think it was when I was cleaning out my grandfather's, some of his artifacts. And guess what was in the box? It was the journal of Ralph Hammett, my grandfather, who had logged everything. So now in some of these slides, you're actually going to see the journal that the family, we've actually forwarded on to Robert Etzel, who wrote the original Monuments Men book, who's now using some of these pictures and some of the archives that we found for our grandfather. Because when the book was written, they thought there wasn't any descendants of Ralph Hammett. I'll get to that in just a second, but I thought it was pretty neat. Because here's a picture of George Allen's father-in-law, which I refer to him as Grandpa. But this was a family. My grandfather, Ralph Hammett, he was an architect. He's from Minnesota. This was our Minnesota connection. Ralph was born in Mankato, Minnesota, and then moved to Rochester in the late 70s at Madonna Towers, and actually died in Rochester here in 1984. I believe it was June, right, Dad? So not important with the talk, but key things, he died at Madonna Towers in 1984. Again, my biggest regret was I didn't know about Monuments Men in 1984. So this was a huge lesson for me, especially with my brother Ralph now being gone. He was really the Monuments Men of the kids. I mean, this guy took more pictures, even more than you, Ashik. And it just always amazes me the history that it takes to bring people together, but it's also the sharing of stories. It really is the sharing of stories. And so my brother Richard is now into it. And we're all, of course, the grandchildren of Ralph Hammond. He had 5 grandchildren. And so it's exciting to learn what he did, but yet it's, I think, even more exciting about what the Monuments Men did. So let's go on to the next slide. The key thing is from 1930, 1945, I've already reflected on part of this. Nazis were destroying some of these things. They were destroying the Jewish art. They were hiding a lot of this art, of course, all over the place. And then Paris knew that as soon as Germany was gonna, boom, go into France, even the folks at the Louvre were already starting to hide those things. And one of the things that they hid was the Mona Lisa. It moved 6 times in order to keep it out of the Germans' hands. So the key thing here was the importance of folks before and after, even during the occupation, were protecting those important things to them. And most of it, of course, was art. So let's go on to the next one. So Hitler was planning basically to build a museum. Hitler was a failed art student, and he was going to build this in Linz, where he was born. That was his birthplace. It was mostly filled with his approved art. He had the Hall of Horrors planned to display Jewish and degenerate art, and wanted to show from what monstrosities the Nazis had saved the world. So really sad the plan that Adolf Hitler had. The campus would include libraries, opera houses, and theaters. The architect was going to be Albert Speer, and he collected 19 albums he had put together, and those albums were in his bunker in Germany for that plan to be followed through, of course. And we're just thankful that it never happened. This was an actual picture of Adolf looking at this great plan that he had once he'd taken over Europe. Let's go on to the next one. This really is really the neat part of this, is think about those things that changed hands already. This was the altarpiece. They refer to it as the Ghent altarpiece, painted by Jan van Eyck in 1432. Of course, this was seized in World War I and was part of the Treaty of Versailles and was given back to Belgium. This is housed in Ghent, Belgium. And there's lots of pieces to it. And you'll know already that in the movie Monuments Men, they were missing one of the pieces. It was just that fear that they had all the part of the pieces, but not all of it. But it's pretty neat to think that this piece has been around for so long and it's so valued by the Catholic Church. Next one. This is the Lady of Ermine. It was seized by the Royal Polish family, and of course was part of Hitler's collection. It was assigned to the governor for Poland. Go on to the next one here. So starting out 1939, like I said, they're starting to gather all this information of what's missing. So here's Jacques Jujara was in charge of the French National Museums. He ordered art to be packed up and moved to remote chateaus on the countryside. And it's so important, again, they knew they were coming. What do we got to do to protect this art? Next one, Bill. Here's the Mona Lisa, changed locations, as I said, 6 times during the occupation. And even I have to focus on the word here. Yeah, this was the statue, but I forget the name of it. But the Winged Victory is what they refer to it, was right underneath Nazis' hands, but the Germans never quite found it. But lots of stories about things that were hidden, and they never knew what it was. All right, go ahead, Bill. Go to the next one. Masterpieces were loaded on trucks and joined the convoy of people fleeing Paris. This is a picture of what the Louvre looked like to the right, pretty much empty. I mean, think about it today. We go visit the Louvre, it's just packed. I mean, I got a neck ache the last time I was at the Louvre because you're looking at the ceiling more than you're looking at the walls. Because of just incredible art. But think about Rembrandt, all those great artists were removed. Germans got quite a bit of it because they were able to intercept and hijack many of the trucks that had the art on it. And again, one of those things that Germans were also knew that things were being protected. All right, next one, Bill. So the Nazis approached Paris, of course, after the siege of June of 1940. And so think about from the June of 1940 until late August, early September of 44, Germans occupied Paris. I did not include slides from my grandfather. He had pictures of the Cathedral of Notre Dame with trucks in front of it and just the damage that was caused around Paris. Even though the Germans were trying to protect things, they damaged and destroyed a lot of things. Keep going, Bill. So here's Hitler and Goring. Of course, Goring was the lead general of the German army. Great picture of them looking at the art. And Goring was saying, well, if it's not going into Hitler's collection, it's definitely going into mine. And then, of course, all of the art that the Nazis had collected. Okay, Bill, next one. This is what I think is the great part of the story. Even in my father's journal, he talked about this woman named Rose Valland. And she's the reason that now it's called Monuments Men and Women. And I've learned in life with my wife, Kim, you find a successful man is usually a woman. Very true, everybody. I want you to meet Rose Valland. Now, I understand that Rose Valland, there's a book that just came out in the last year about Rose Valland, and I think it's neat that she's getting the recognition that she deserves. In the movie, she was played by Cate Blanchett, the actress. She did a fantastic job. And if you remember, how many of you saw the movie Monuments Men? Raise your hand. All right. Wasn't the best scene in the movie is when she spit into their champagne glass? I thought Cate Blanchett nailed it on that one, and I commend George Clooney and others who directed that movie because the Germans decided to keep her working with them because she was quiet, but the Germans didn't know that she knew German. And so everything that left, and even German commanders came into the museum with all this art, and they would say in German, we're going to take this to such and such place. she wrote it down. That was such a great part of the movie, is the idea that she was able to log everything. And it made everybody's jobs a little easier, as you saw in the movie, but it also made all the monuments jobs easier because my grandfather, Ralph Hammett, was assigned to France. So when the war was over, he stayed in France for a few months. Well, how long did he stay in France, Ed? Do you remember? Did he ever say? Was it 6 months to a year and a half?
I don't know exactly how long, but.
Okay, well, I just remember my mother saying we spent some time in France.
He was the cataloger for all the art and where it had gone to.
Right, he was a cataloger. He was an architect, but he was very good at documenting things. Now, a couple of things I want to mention about Ralph Hammett too was he went to the University of Minnesota to get his architecture degree, but he went to Harvard and got his graduate degree. And that's where he met George Stout and all these other characters from there. So it's very true that they all knew each other, you know, in the working world, which of course that's what Rotary is about, is we're connecting, we're collaborating, we want to make the world better. These guys were the same way. And Rose Milan was a key component to the Monuments Men. Why? Because she cataloged things and made things a lot easier to go out and find it. So now on the next few slides, we're going to jump into, there's a lot of words that I may not be able to pronounce, so I'm going to apologize right now. And I wanted to have, go ahead to the next one. So here are they heading to England. So the Monuments Men got together, of course, now they're headed to England. Many of them had ranks, of course, because if they'd served in World War I, they were able to keep their rank. So Ralph Hammett did serve in World War I as a seaman with the Navy. But more importantly, he was able to join the group coming over to England. Now they had to do some training in England, and much of this was prior to D-Day. They couldn't jump into France yet because the Allied forces hadn't pushed in yet, but they wanted to be ready. They wanted to get everything documented. And here's a picture of them on the crossover. This is the first picture, the next one. This is the first picture of the journal that my grandfather kept. So this is what was neat. So when we found this, we immediately sent it to Robert Etzel, who wrote the book, who immediately realized maybe I need to write another book. But what I thought was really neat is this is now, much of this is on display at the World War II Museum, or will be on display at the World War II Museum in New Orleans, which the Monuments Men exhibit will be dedicated this year. It's being dedicated in New Orleans at the World War II Museum. But here's a little journal. Here's Ralph Hammett was notorious for writing things down. He made a list of who was present at the meeting: George Stout, James Lorimer, and then Captain Ralph Hammett. And this really was nice to have the documentation of who was there and what. And of course, this meeting took place August 13th as they're getting ready. The battle for Normandy was coming to a close. Time for the men to access the past and consider its future. So just sort of a neat component of things that we found, and they're so important. Next slide. This was the fun part. You know, as I mentioned, the commanding officer is going to sit there and make fun of these guys who are saying, we want to protect this church. We want to protect this building. We want to protect. And here's a commanding officer saying, you idiot, this is 20th century war. Who gives a damn about medieval walls? Commanding officer speaking to James Lorimer before the first MFAA in France meeting. And then Posey arrived first and posted 3 signs. So they started putting these signs up, and the troops were like, wait a second. We've already pushed the Germans out, but we get to cry. And they would put signs up saying, off limits, stay away, do not start collecting, you know, these artifacts and whatever. This is not yours. And you know, our soldiers were very respectful, but at the same time, you've always got a few that are going to say, yeah, no, I got to take a souvenir back with me. But it was very important for them to put a few signs up. Next slide, Bill. So here's some of the things. This was signed by Eisenhower, talking about the Allied Forces National Monument, out of bounds, off limits. Okay. And what's interesting is commanding officers would say, well, wait a second, we just took this property over, and here's this beautiful room full of artwork. We're going to make that our headquarters. And my grandfather, Grandpa Hammett, as I refer to him, but Ralph Hammett would come in and tell these commanding officers, no, you can't have your headquarters here. there's art around, there's too much stuff here that could be damaged. You know, how'd you like to be that guy? You know, telling that to the generals and the colonels and so on. So just, these are important things that Eisenhower, of course, was the supreme commander of the Allied forces. But it did help if you get the general signing on. Keep going. So again, more on his journal. Here's some photographs of churches that were bombed. Ralph would try and document, work with the local engineering firm, and put things back together. Of course, that was really the big deal with the buildings that were damaged. Keep going. Here's a picture of, this is my grandfather on the left, Ralph Hammond, and with a few, let me jump ahead here so I make sure I'm on the right slide. So you've got the curator of the Louvre, you've got the folks that are almost, since it's cutting off the top, I want to make sure that everybody sees. So this is at the Chateau de Sorches, can't pronounce that, it's in northwestern France, where Nazis had stored their looted art. So it's one of the places they started recovering the art. All right, next one. Even the Germans said, we want to protect certain areas. So they put signs from up above. And in this case, this is the lawn design in the back of the chateau was a signal built to notify German fighter pilots to not bomb there, which obviously was a clue for us that, oh, there must be something important there. And this is where they were storing some of the art. So it always works both ways. If you can get your intelligence to find out, oh, they don't want the planes to bomb there. Okay, there must be something important there. So very important. Next slide. So just a few of the paintings I want to share with you. This is the Time and the Old Women painted by Goya. It was found among the loot. And you can see a picture of some of the monuments men standing next to these huge paintings, which are just so vital to all of the art. Next one was the Notre Dame of Chartres. I can't pronounce it. The monument of medieval civilization. So you can see the Cathedral of Notre Dame, but more importantly, the art inside was just incredible, and they had to put it back, or they had to go find it. Of course, that was the whole purpose of why they were there. Next one, had to put in a slide from the movie. Of course, Rose Ballard eventually learned to trust James Lorimer, and she shared her secretly compiled list of locations the Nazis had chosen to store their looted art. I just think it's neat. If you've seen the movie, it really does tie together very well with the way Kate Blanchett did that. So go ahead, next one. This is important because the Neuschwanstein Castle was a big find by the Allied forces. So in the movie, they realized this place was full of a lot of stuff. So go ahead, next one, Bill. So these were the paintings and here's a picture of James Lorimer coming out with some of the paintings. And of course, the Mystic Lamb from 1432 was one of the stolen pieces that was recovered at the castle. So pretty neat how once Allied forces pushed in, our forces, our monuments men and women were able to recover these pieces of art, particularly the sculptures. And I'll get to the Mary Magdalene and the Child here in just a minute as we continue to jump through. How are we doing on time?
At about 8 minutes.
8 minutes? Okay, we're gonna try and finish this up. So this is again the church. This is the Weitstall St. Mary altarpiece, painted in 1477, stolen from a church in Krakow, Poland. This was also found at the castle. Just absolutely beautiful pieces that were going to go into the Hitler Art Museum, but thank goodness never got there. And we've got to protect all this stuff. Keep going, Bill. So here's 21,000 stolen items were recovered. Among the fightings, private belongings to the Austrian and Rothschild family. Very important part, Rothschild. There was a famous scene in the movie. I'll jump on that in just a second. But you can just see all of the art in the pieces. But Rothschild, very famous artist, but more importantly, because of a toothache. This is now not all movies are totally true, but in the movie Monuments Men, it was a toothache that led him to a dentist who then removed the tooth, and he said, "Oh, my son-in-law," and he happened to the tie-in in the movie. That was all true, which I just thought was fascinating that Captain Posey was the one in the movie, of course, who they were able to recover much of the Rothschild collection. Keep going, Bill. So the good name of the Army depended in great measure on the respect which it showed to the art heritage of the modern world. Again, it's just neat to just see pictures. Some of these pictures were my grandfather. Some of these pictures were we pulled off through the Monuments Men Museum. Next one, Bill. So here's some of the Rothschild family art. Want to include some photos. And then art relocation from May to November. So, of course, as the war came to an end, Germany surrendered. Hitler was dead. But from May to November, now they're out trying to find it. Now, if you remember in the movie Merkers, I'll just say, all of these, many of these places were mines that they stored the art in. And all we had to do is recover them. Next one. So this was found in the woods near the castle, the burghers of Calais. Keep going. The toothache leads to stolen art. So here it's Captain Posey, Private Lincoln Kirstein, the town dentist, the dentist's son, dentist's daughter-in-law, and the dentist's grandsons. And it happened February of 1945 in a small cottage in eastern Germany. So in the movie, they were very accurate. They really wanted to be as accurate as they could. But I still laugh because Bill Murray getting his tooth extracted was quite a funny scene. In the movie, Bill Murray basically plays a merger of Ralph Hammond and Captain Posey. At least that's what we kind of feel out of that. But here's pictures of all those places I mentioned. I'll jump from the mic here real quick. Here's Merkers in the center. And of course, they were hiding art all through the area. Linz is way over here. And some of this, of course, was occupied by Russia after the war. And so who knows if we got it all, because Russia made an effort to keep many of the pieces. They kept it basically as, gee, we lost a lot of people. We spent a lot of money. This is ours. Of course, United States, we've always been very generous. We wanted it to stay there, but we did stay to many of the, and this happened even after the war. You know, people like Rose Valland said, yeah, let's loan these pieces over to the United States and put them in the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art for 6 months or a year. And it's just always been nice to be able to borrow the art, see these paintings here in the United States, and then send them back to where they really need to be. Next one, Bill. So here's those places I told you about: Siegen, Koblenz, Hamburg, Bussbend. I'm trying to pronounce all these, but you see with the asterisks, those were Soviet Union's domain. So again, once the war was over, Soviet Union, boom, I mean, they put the wall up and said, we're done. Obviously, East Berlin was created, but more importantly, they held on to what they thought was already theirs. Keep going. So April 4th and April 5th, Germans tried to unsuccessfully move valuables from Merkers. In the movie, of course, we captured a lot of gold and a lot of the money that Germany had confiscated from all those countries they invaded. And of course, 8,000 bars of gold bullion, 55 boxes of gold bullion. Oh, it's just amazing how much they were able to recover. Part of this was Monuments Men. Part of this was, no, they determined that the mines were hiding the art, but then now the Germans are using it for other things too. So just the important part that came out of what the Monuments Men were doing. Next one. So other art pieces, here's Eisenhower, General Eisenhower at the time, flipping through much of the art that they had just recovered. Let me jump ahead and make sure I'm on track here. And then here's some of the Monets. We're all familiar with Monet, French painter, and how they recovered those. Here it is inside of a mine shaft. You know, was being stored in safekeeping and returned to Berlin. But more importantly, wow. Now here's the salt mine I told you about. Let me jump ahead here. As you learned in the movie, Althusser, I'm probably mispronouncing it because I always should check, but this was the mine that actually the people blew up. They basically were trying to protect what was in there. And They had huge amounts of explosives initially because the Germans were trying to destroy. So the Nero decree had already been declared. Nero decree was Hitler saying, destroy all the art. If we're going to lose this war, we're going to take a bunch of things with us. We didn't want that to happen. And of course, the townspeople decreased the amount of dynamite, but they decreased it enough to just only block the entrances. And of course, at the end of the movie, we were able to, of course, the US forces were able to get in and get what they wanted out of there. And one of the pieces in there, next piece, here's a picture of what they did, the Nero decree I mentioned to you as ordered by Hitler. And then they removed some of the bombs and just pictures of what it looked like there at Tozay. All right, keep going. So as I mentioned, George Stout and others transporting Michelangelo's sculpture, the Madonna. That was really the focal point of the movie, the Madonna and Child, which of course Michelangelo had sculpted back in I forget the year. I'm not going to quote it. I haven't check that, but here's where they found it, and then here's a picture of them transporting it out of the 1504. See, you should check my next slide. So it's located in Bruges, which is Belgium, and so if you ever get over to Belgium, go to Bruges, Brugge. I've been there a couple times. They pronounce it a couple different ways. To see Madonna and Child, it's just wonderful. The sculpture in the church there. Okay, so again, I already mentioned the altarpiece chosen to be the centerpiece. Belgium was forever grateful to Captain Posey for recovering it. And Ralph Hammond had some things logged in about, again, they would constantly think they had all the pieces and they were missing one. So it was sort of funny to hear how they put it all together. All right, next one. This is the astronomer, one part of Johannes Vermeer's, the astronomer, painted in 1668, found in the salt mine in Austria. Lots of these pieces. I just like to highlight them here for you. Keep going, Bill. Hungary's crown jewels, the wedding ceremony, 1567. Some of these pieces. Keep going. I really want to highlight here real quick, Private Henry Ettinger, who was actually at the medal ceremony in Washington. He was a young German in the movie. He really helped out George Clooney, and of course, George Stout was his real name, but really painted a picture because he spoke German and was able to really help our monuments men out. Keep going. Keep going. So you got other pictures. Some of these were used in the movie. Just amazing how much stuff they confiscated from Jews. And these are just pictures and so on. Keep going. Almost done. Here's the Seagan's Caves. You have Beethoven's Sixth Symphony was in there, bombed many times, but things that we found through art. Keep going. And then has all the art been found and returned? No, the story's not over. So a couple more slides here. So this piece has been missing. They believe in the movie it burned. It didn't mean it really burned. They didn't have any video of that, of course, but this was, of course, the, let me highlight here. It's believed to be valued over $100 million, but they can't find it. They think that it's either been stolen and or it's still somewhere. We just hope that it's found at some point. All right, winding up here, Allie. And there's even been rewards now that are posted. If you find art, there's now some playing cards from the monuments men that lists all these art pieces that are missing, that families have come forward in the last 40, 50, 60 years and said, we had that art prior to World War II and it's been missing. So keep going, just a few for you to highlight here. Lion Tamer, portrait of Wally. It came to the New York Metropolitan Museum of Letter. Cubism paintings. And then just to finish our program, it was really neat to see that monuments men and women received the Medal of Honor, the Congressional Medal of Honor on October 22nd, 2015. I thought it was really neat that my brother Ralph Hammond Allen was representing our family at the ceremony, and my sister Ruth. And that's a nice picture of them with Robert Etzel, who wrote the book. I brought a sample of the medal today. If you'd like to come up and see it, I just thought it's pretty neat. You can also order one through the US Mint, but I'm not up here giving you a commercial about the US Mint. And that should be it. So I wanted to give me the hook, get me off the stage. I've really had a lot of fun doing this. Glad to answer a couple of questions. Really expert also in the room is George Allen, the son-in-law of Ralph Hammond. And I just thought it was really neat that Dad could be here today. He's my biggest cheerleader, but then after I give the talk today, he'll probably be my toughest critic. But you know, that's okay. I can handle it. But thank you.
Wow. What an amazing story. It's so well told. I'm sure there might be people who would like to, if you're available for a couple of minutes afterwards, if people have questions. If people who need to leave by a certain time, please feel free to do that. In appreciation for your presentation, Frank, a gift will be made in your honor to Quarryville Nature Center. And thank you. It was just stunning. As we close out today, I want to give thanks to Mark Kochevar for leading us in the 4-way test, Sue Luby for providing the reflection, Joseph Pakula for welcoming Rotarians and guests at the entry, Jennifer Teskey for helping at the visitors desk and introducing guests, Bill Wickford for handling the technology so well. Oh,
I forgot to put this up.
you gonna put it up high? That's just people. can
I
see.
had to buy the movie poster.
Yes, yes.
These are actual photographs here.
So thank you again, Frank. It was just a wonderful presentation and sharing his family's remarkable story. I'm glad that George could be here to hear his presentation. Probably not the first, probably not the last. We are working to adjust without a club administrator, so things that don't necessarily happen at quite the same rate. Like the moccasin flower was in a PDF, it wasn't on Club Runner, but we're going to keep trying to find a good person to fill those shoes. And I thank you all for coming. And if you'd like, Frank, if you want to stay up and people want to hear more, but what a sumptuous presentation. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.